Here is your long emotional story written as one continuous paragraph. People often think that building character is something that happens in classrooms, inside books, or through speeches that sound beautiful but never touch real life. Yet the truth is far more painful and far more human, because character is carved slowly by invisible battles, silent tears, and moments when nobody is watching. And this truth begins with a boy named Ayan, who grew up in a small dusty neighborhood where dreams felt too expensive and hope felt like a luxury reserved for other people. Because in his home the ceiling leaked when it rained, the electricity left without warning, and the dinner table often held more silence than food. And yet, despite everything, Ayan carried inside him a strange stubborn spark that refused to die even when life kept stepping on it again and again, as if testing how much weight a young heart could bear before breaking. And the first lesson life taught him arrived when he was only 8 years old and watched his father lose his job after years of loyal work. Because loyalty in the real world sometimes means nothing to people who only count money. And Ayan watched his father come home that evening with shoulders bent in a way he had never seen before, like a tree that had survived storms, but finally cracked under one unexpected wind, and the house felt smaller that night as silence replaced laughter and worry replaced comfort. And for the first time Ayan understood that adults were not superheroes, but fragile humans trying to hide their fears behind forced smiles. And that night his mother quietly skipped dinner pretending she wasn't hungry while his father stared at the wall as if answers might appear from the peeling paint. And Ayan lay awake realizing that childhood ends not with birthdays, but with the moment you notice your parents are struggling. And from that day, he decided he would become strong, not because he wanted to, but because life had already started asking him to be, and school became another battlefield where kindness was rare and mockery was cheap, because poverty has a smell that classmates somehow notice even when you try to hide it with washed uniforms and quiet behavior. And Ayan became the boy who laughed with everyone but never felt included, the boy who helped others with homework but never received invitations to birthday parties, the boy who learned early that loneliness can exist even in crowded rooms. And every insult he pretended not to hear became another brick in the invisible wall he was building inside himself, a wall meant to protect him, but slowly turning into a prison of silence. And years passed with struggles piling like unpaid bills, until one day his father fell ill, not suddenly but gradually, as if exhaustion had finally demanded its payment, and hospitals became their new routine, filled with long lines, harsh lights, and the smell of disinfectant mixed with fear. And Ayan watched his mother sell the small gold bangles she once wore proudly just to afford medicines that only promised hope but never guarantees. And that was the day Ayan learned the cruel difference between price and value, because the world priced medicines and money but valued life and love. And when his father finally returned home weaker than before, Ayan silently made a promise to himself that he would never allow his family to feel this helpless again, even though he had no idea how he would keep that promise. And so he started working after school, carrying boxes in a small shop where the owner barely noticed his existence except to remind him to work faster. And every evening Ayan returned home with aching arms, but a quiet sense of purpose, because pain felt lighter when it had meaning. And slowly he began to understand that character is not built in comfort but in responsibility, in showing up even when you are tired, in choosing effort when excuses feel easier. And yet life was not done testing him, because one evening, while returning home under the dim orange glow of streetlights, he saw a group of boys bullying an elderly man who was trying to collect fallen vegetables from the road after his cart had overturned. And people passed by pretending not to see, because indifference is often easier than courage. And Ayan hesitated for only a second before stepping forward, even though fear screamed inside him. And he helped the old man gather the scattered vegetables while the bullies laughed and pushed him. And though his hands trembled and his heart pounded like thunder, he refused to step back, because something inside him knew that character is measured in moments like this, moments when doing the right thing feels frightening and lonely. And when the boys finally left, the old man held Ayan's hands with tears in his eyes, and whispered a simple thank you that felt heavier than any reward he had ever imagined. And that night Ayan realized that strength is not loud or dramatic but quiet and stubborn, and that kindness often hurts but still matters. And years rolled forward like slow turning pages, and Ayan continued working, studying, failing, trying again, facing rejection letters that felt like doors slammed in his face. Yet each rejection slowly transformed from an enemy into a teacher, because failure began teaching him patience, resilience, and humility. And there were nights he cried silently into his pillow, wondering if life would ever get easier, wondering if all his sacrifices would ever mean something. But every morning he woke up and tried again, because giving up would mean betraying the promise he made to himself and to his family. And eventually the day arrived when he received a small job offer, not glamorous or impressive but honest and real. And when he handed his first full salary to his mother, her tears fell onto the envelope, as if washing away years of struggle. And in that quiet moment Ayan understood that success is not a loud celebration, but a soft breath of relief shared by the people who stood beside you in your darkest days. And life continued bringing challenges, because it always does, yet Ayan faced them differently now, not with fear, but with understanding, knowing that every hardship carried a hidden lesson waiting to be discovered. And as he grew older, he began helping others the way strangers once helped him, offering encouragement to young boys working late evenings, reminding them that their struggles did not define their future, because he knew firsthand how powerful a single kind word could be when hope feels fragile. And one evening he returned to the same street where he once helped the old man, only to find a small vegetable shop standing proudly in place of that broken cart. And the old man recognized him instantly, embracing him like family, and thanking him again. For a moment Ayan had almost forgotten, and in that embrace Ayan realized something profound, that the smallest acts of courage can echo through years in ways we never see. And that building character is not about becoming perfect or invincible, but about becoming compassionate, resilient, and brave enough to keep going despite fear. And as the sun set behind the buildings, painting the sky in shades of gold and orange, Ayan felt a quiet peace settle inside him, the kind of peace that does not come from having everything but from understanding everything. And he finally understood that life had never been trying to break him, but to shape him, to teach him empathy through pain, strength through responsibility, and gratitude through struggle. And though the journey had been awful, exhausting, and filled with moments that nearly crushed him, it had also built a character strong enough to stand, to help, to hope, and to keep walking forward no matter how long the road ahead might be. Because in the end, character is not something we are born with, but something we build piece by piece through every hardship we survive, every kindness we choose, and every time we rise again when life tries to push us down. And as the years kept moving forward like a river that never stops for anyone, Ayan slowly began to understand that life does not pause once you survive the hardest chapter. It simply turns the page and asks whether you have truly learned what the last chapter tried to teach you. And just when he thought the storms had softened, another season of struggle arrived quietly, disguised as responsibility. Because his father's health never fully returned, and the weight of the household gradually settled onto Ayan's shoulders without ceremony, without applause, without warning. And every morning he woke before sunrise, while the sky still held the last traces of night, walking through empty streets where stray dogs roamed and shop shutters remained closed. And in those quiet walks he often wondered how many other people carried invisible battles like his, how many hearts walked silently beside him in the same darkness pretending to be fine. And these thoughts slowly turned into a deep empathy that shaped the way he saw the world, because pain has a strange way of making you kinder if you don't let it make you bitter. Yet bitterness often whispered to him in moments of exhaustion, asking why life seemed easier for others, asking why effort did not always lead to immediate reward. And on some nights those whispers felt louder than hope, louder than faith, louder than the promises he once made to himself. But every time he came close to listening to that bitterness, he remembered his mother's tired smile and his father's quiet pride, and those memories became anchors that pulled him back from the edge of despair. And he kept going, step after step, day after day, until one evening he found himself mentoring a young coworker named Bilal who reminded him painfully of his younger self, shy, overworked, and silently drowning in responsibilities far too heavy for his age. And when Bilal finally broke down and admitted he felt like a failure, Ayan felt his own past echo in that confession, and he realized that character is not only built through personal struggle but through lifting others when they feel like falling. And so he began sharing stories he had never told anyone before, stories of rejection, fear, loneliness, and small victories that once felt invisible. And in sharing those stories, he discovered something unexpected, that vulnerability is not weakness but courage in its purest form. And slowly Bilal began to change, standing taller, smiling more, believing in possibilities he once thought impossible, and watching the transformation filled Ayan with a quiet pride deeper than any salary increase or promotion, because he realized that real success multiplies when it helps others grow. And years passed like turning pages in a book written by invisible hands, and one day Ayan stood outside a modest house he had finally managed to buy for his family, holding the keys with trembling fingers, as if afraid the moment might disappear if he moved too quickly. And when his parents stepped inside and saw the sunlight pouring through the windows, illuminating empty rooms filled with possibility, tears filled the space more quickly than furniture ever could. And in that moment Ayan felt the weight of every sleepless night, every rejection, every insult, every sacrifice collapse into a single breath of relief. And he realized that dreams do not arrive with fireworks, but with quiet tears and grateful silence. And as he stood there watching his parents walk slowly through the house, touching walls as if they were fragile miracles, he finally allowed himself to cry openly for the first time in years, not from sadness, but from release, from the overwhelming realization that the journey had been worth it. And yet, even in that moment of triumph, he understood that character building never truly ends, because life will always present new challenges, new lessons, new reasons to grow. And the difference now was that he no longer feared those challenges. He welcomed them with a calm acceptance born from experience, knowing that each hardship carried the potential to shape him further, to deepen his empathy, to strengthen his resilience. And as the evening sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the floor, Ayan felt a quiet promise form inside him, a promise to remain humble in success, kind in hardship, and patient in uncertainty, because he had learned that character is not proven in moments of victory but in the way we treat others while climbing toward it. And as night settled gently around the new home filled with laughter and gratitude, Ayan stepped outside and looked up at the vast sky, feeling small yet strangely powerful at the same time, because he finally understood that the world may never notice every struggle he endured, but the person he became because of those struggles would carry their meaning forever. And in that quiet understanding he felt a peace deeper than any applause, a peace born from knowing that even the most awful journeys can lead to beautiful destinations when you refuse to stop walking forward. And yet the journey kept unfolding in ways Ayan never expected, because life rarely allows peace to remain untouched for long. And just when routine began to feel comfortable, the world outside his small circle started changing faster than he could prepare for. Prices rising, opportunities shifting, people around him chasing success with a desperation that often forgot kindness along the way. And Ayan found himself standing in a world that seemed louder, faster, and colder than the one he had grown up in, where everyone wanted more but fewer people asked why. And at first, he felt afraid that the values he had built through hardship would slowly fade in such a world, that patience and humility might be mistaken for weakness again. But something inside him had grown too strong to break so easily, and instead of shrinking he leaned deeper into the lessons life had carved into him. choosing to treat people with the same quiet respect he once wished someone had shown him when he was younger. And this decision began shaping the atmosphere around him in ways he did not immediately notice, because kindness rarely creates noise. It spreads quietly like warmth on a cold morning, and co-workers began seeking his advice not because he was the smartest or the richest but because he listened without judgment, and neighbors trusted him with small responsibilities that slowly turned into big ones. And without realizing it, he became the kind of person others leaned on when life felt heavy. The kind of person he once searched for in his darkest days. And this realization both humbled and frightened him, because he knew how fragile strength can feel when too many people depend on it. And there were nights he sat alone wondering if he was truly strong or simply good at hiding his fears. And in those moments, he remembered a lesson his father once whispered during a rare evening of shared tea. That courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward despite it. And those words became a quiet compass guiding him through uncertainty. And years continued their steady march forward until one rainy afternoon he encountered a boy sitting outside a closed shop, drenched and shivering, trying to protect a small stack of school books from the rain with nothing but his thin jacket. And the sight struck Ion with such force that it felt like time had folded back onto itself, placing his younger self in front of him once again. And without hesitation he approached the boy and offered help, listening to a story painfully familiar: a father out of work, a mother hiding her hunger, a child trying to be brave before his time. And in that moment Ion understood something that words had never fully captured before, that life had been quietly preparing him for this exact moment, not just to survive his struggles, but to use them as bridges for others still trying to cross their own storms. And he began helping the boy with school, guiding him the way he once wished someone had guided him. And as months turned into years, the boy's confidence grew, his grades improved, and hope slowly replaced fear in his eyes. And watching that transformation filled Ion with a deep sense of purpose that no achievement had ever matched, because he realized that the greatest measure of character is not what you achieve for yourself, but what you make possible for others. And as he walked home one evening under a sky painted with fading sunlight, he felt the same quiet peace he once felt years ago standing outside his new home, only now it was deeper, steadier, rooted in the knowledge that the cycle of struggle and kindness would continue long after him, and that every act of compassion plants seeds in places we may never see bloom. And for the first time he truly understood that the awful journey he once wished away had been shaping him into someone capable of turning pain into hope, fear into courage, and loneliness into connection. And as the night air grew cool, and the city lights flickered on one by one, Ion smiled softly to himself, knowing that the story of building character never really ends. It simply passes from one life to another, carried forward by quiet acts of strength, kindness, and the unbreakable decision to keep moving forward no matter how difficult the road becomes. And then came the night that felt as if the entire journey had been leading toward it. A night when the sky roared with thunder and rain poured down in sheets so heavy it blurred the city into shadows and flickering lights. A night when Ion received a frantic call that made his heart pound with a familiar, terrifying rhythm he thought he had left behind years ago, because the young boy he had been helping was missing after leaving evening classes, and the streets had already begun to flood. And fear rushed through Ion's veins with the same urgency he once felt as a child watching life slip out of control. And without a second thought he ran out into the storm, rain soaking his clothes, wind pushing against his chest like an invisible wall trying to hold him back. Yet every step forward felt driven by something deeper than fear, something built from years of struggle, responsibility, and the quiet promise he had made long ago to never let helplessness win again. And the city felt different that night, louder and darker, as if every alley and street corner held unanswered questions. And Ion searched relentlessly, calling the boy's name into the roaring rain until his voice grew hoarse, until exhaustion began creeping into his legs, whispering that maybe he was too late, but he refused to stop because he knew what it felt like to wait for someone who might never come. And finally, near a dimly lit underpass where rainwater had gathered into deep pools reflecting trembling streetlights, he saw a small figure curl beside a broken railing, trembling with fear and cold. And in that moment the storm inside Ion quieted as relief crashed over him like a wave stronger than the rain, and he rushed forward, wrapping the boy in his arms as if trying to shield him from every hardship life could ever bring. And the boy began to cry, not loud sobs but the quiet, shaking kind that come from fear finally releasing its grip. And Ion felt tears mix with the rain on his own face, realizing how close he had come to losing someone who had become part of his purpose, part of the reason he kept moving forward. And as he helped the boy stand and began walking him home through the storm, lightning split the sky into brilliant flashes that illuminated the flooded streets, and for a brief moment everything stood still in that silver light. And Ion understood with breathtaking clarity that this was the culmination of everything life had been teaching him, every painful lesson, every sleepless night, every moment he chose courage over comfort, all leading to the simple, powerful truth that character is not built for recognition or applause, but for moments when someone else's hope depends on your strength. And when they finally reached the safety of home, and the door opened to reveal a mother collapsing in tears of relief, Ion stepped back into the rain quietly, heart pounding with a mixture of exhaustion and peace. And as thunder rolled across the sky like distant applause, he looked upward and felt something he had chased his entire life settle gently within him, a deep unshakable certainty that the boy he once was would be proud of the man he had become. And as the storm slowly began to fade into a soft whisper of rain, Ion walked home through the quiet streets with a steady smile, knowing that the journey of building character had never been about escaping storms, but about learning how to walk through them and become the shelter someone else needed when the rain finally came.